Lodge 19 is here. Of course, Mayor Stefan Roots is with us. Commissioner Gretzky, you're going to hear from both Commissioner Gretzky and the Mayor after me. And there are various members of City Council who are here, Mr. Green, Councilwoman West, Councilman Davis, and of course my Chief County Detective Jim Nolan, and the Chief Bill Baer, who is the Chief of the Delaware County Chiefs of Police Association. So he's the Chief of Police for Fulcroft. He's also the Chief of all of our Chiefs Association in Delaware County. So we're here, and I'm going to let Stephen talk a little bit about the good news about Detective Byrne and his condition. But I just want to go through the events as I can explain them of what happened last Saturday. This tragic event that Detective Burns once again has become a hero for all the people in the city of Chester by stopping a very dangerous human being. And as you all know, this is the third police shooting we've had, third officer shot just in the last 10 or 12 days. So we're all heartened here as a law enforcement community about what's going on in our country and our Commonwealth. But let me just give you the details of what happened on Saturday. On Saturday morning, February 17th at about 11:30 a.m., there was a drive-by shooting at 900 block of Pennell Street here in the city of Chester. A black Ford Taurus, very distinctive vehicle, drove by and shot an individual. The shot came from the driver's side window, and that car sped off. Luckily, because Commissioner Gretzky and former Chief of Police here, Jim Nolan, have been thinking forwardly and putting cameras and a platform to connect cameras all over the city of Chester, we were quickly able to identify a suspect who was Therese Armstrong, who was the registered owner of that vehicle. Later that afternoon, Detective Byrne received a radio call that vehicle had been seen in the city of Chester. He then tried to make an investigatory stop. The vehicle took off, went into Upland. Upland police joined in the chase of this suspect, also joined in by Chester Township police officers as well. The car came back into the city of Chester. At some point, hit a side of the street, blew out a tire, tried to make a turn onto what was called 14th and Arbiter Drive. The vehicle could not make the turn. He jumped out of the car, and that individual, Therese Armstrong, literally began firing the moment he got out of the vehicle. He had a Browning 9mm semi-automatic weapon on him. He fired directly at police officers. Detective Byrne was shot by him. Detective Byrne returned fire, as did other officers, 3 other officers from Upland, 2 from Upland, and 1 from Chester Township. Mr. Armstrong was killed by that gunfire. He was wounded several times. Was brought to the hospital, Crozier Chester, where he died on, I think, Saturday evening. Detective Burns and his fellow officers were our heroes. They stopped an individual who was very dangerous. We have now done an initial ballistics examination and determined that the 9mm Browning that he used to shoot at Detective Burns and the other officers was the gun that was involved in the drive-by shooting. So Therese Armstrong, who we wanted as a suspect for that shooting, we have now determined that he was indeed the shooter that day. It was his vehicle that drove by and shot an individual at the 900 block of Pennell, and we have now tied that gun directly to Mr. Armstrong. The officers returned fire both to save their lives. As you know, Detective Byrne was actually shot by him, but also to protect people in the community. This is a completely dangerous situation and is completely unwarranted because individuals who should not have firearms have firearms, a semi-automatic firearm. This young man, who I believe is 20 years old, was carrying and used to shoot somebody in the morning and then to shoot at 4 police officers in the afternoon. Thank God these men are all okay. Thank God nobody else in the community was hurt. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Commissioner Gretzky to tell you more about Detective Byrne and his condition, and then you're going to hear from the mayor about the community aspect of this as well. Commissioner?
Thank you. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank the support from all the police departments locally in Delaware County, Pennsylvania State Police, the Governor's Office, who have called and checked on Detective Stephen Byrne. Detective Stephen Byrne has 16 years of service with this police department. He is one of my most senior detectives. And on Saturday, when he received the call, he was on his day off. Call for duty come, Detective Byrne comes into work. They did a stellar job, our detective division, along with CID, to bring the original shooting to closure. I was at the hospital this morning for about an hour. I spoke to Stephen Byrne. He's in very good spirits. He appreciates everybody checking on him, and we just received some good news. He was just released within the last 2 hours, where he's home, safe with his family. Thank you.
The purpose of today's press conference is to provide clarity and updated information on the situation that occurred on Saturday here in Chester, resulting in one of our detectives being shot following his pursuit of a suspect, and he was shot twice, in fact. I'm thrilled to report that during my visit with our detective this morning, the doctors walked in while I was there and gave him his discharge papers. He was with his wife, his mother who flew up from Florida, and his grandmother. What a special moment that was. He's now home with his loved ones recuperating. Thank you all for your thoughts and prayers. It worked. I'd like to also recognize the staff, the doctors, the trauma folks over at Crozier Hospital who made this happen. They accommodated him. They kept him a couple days longer than I thought he was going to stay, because when I saw him on the day of the shooting, he looked good enough to go home. But out of caution, they had him stay for a couple nights. And believe me, he is in good shape, going home to recuperate. And I told him he could take a few weeks off. But sadly, as you know, the suspect died as a result of the exchange of gunfire with officers. And we here in Chester, we mourn every death in our city, regardless of the circumstances. That was somebody's son, somebody's grandson, somebody's brother. Someone loved him, and he had friends. My condolences go out to all of you who know him. As I work to revitalize this great city, potential developers and business interests, they all ask the same two questions about Chester. What are you going to do about the crime? What are you going to do about the schools? Let's be clear. I've met with my entire police force in my first few weeks on the job here as mayor, starting on January 1st. I met from the commissioner all the way down to our newest person on the force. And my message is consistent to all of them. It goes something like this. Treat our citizens with respect that they deserve. Whether it's a young knucklehead doing something that he shouldn't be doing, something stupid, someone behaving badly because they're in a desperate situation, an opportunist taking advantage of someone just because they can, or a cold-blooded killer. Regardless of who they are, they all deserve respect from the police force. But however, and I made it clear to my police, respect goes both ways. And I shouldn't have to say any more about that. Let it be known that the day is over when you can get away with any type of crime here in Chester. It's not tolerated in neighboring towns. It won't be tolerated here. I instructed all of my police. Don't be petty or punitive, but be consistent and fair. To citizens, stop littering, stop kicking in doors, stop shoplifting, stop running red lights. Get your driver's license, put your seatbelt on, put your child in the car seat, register your car, and register your guns, because every illegal gun is considered an instrument of crime, which you will be severely punished for when we find them. Retaliation is not smart, people. Police are solving crimes here in this city at the highest rate on record. And you heard that as an example today. In just 2 to 3 days, we got them. Let us do our job. The last point I want to say is, don't challenge the Chester police. You will not win. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I take questions, I just want to echo what the mayor said, and you can see the political support that the Chester Police has in this community. They have community support as well. These guys have been doing a fantastic job. Since I got elected district attorney, we made it a point to partnership with the Chester Police and the community here in the city of Chester. The Chester Partnership for Safe Neighborhoods has been a resounding success. Over the last 4 years, the number of shootings are down by 72%. The number of gun homicides are down by 68%. But as the mayor said, every single person who we lose is a loss that all of us in the community feel. We cannot let this gun violence continue to go on anywhere in any community. These officers in Chester Police are fantastic. We have partnered with them. State police have worked with us as well to make sure we're doing every single thing we can to give everyone the opportunity to live the American dream here in the city of Chester, the same way my family got to live the American dream when we came here in the city of Chester from the Ukraine. We just need everyone in the community to realize we are here for you, and we will solve crimes, as the mayor said. Everyone here is on the same page. We treat everybody with dignity and respect, and we deserve to be treated that way as well. And if we all do that, ladies and gentlemen, we won't have to have more press conferences like this or officers that we have to visit in the hospital. So if you don't mind, at this point, I'll just take any questions anybody has. I will warn you all that this is still an ongoing investigation, okay? So there's very limited what I can say beyond what I've already said. But if you have any questions, we'll give it a shot.
Did the suspect have any prior offenses?
I cannot get into that details.
Do we know if Detective Byrne was wearing a bulletproof vest?
Stephen?
For our detective division, they wear an outer carrier, which does give him covered. But again, he was struck towards his left side. And like I said, just thank God he wasn't fatally wounded.
Do we know if he was shot?
It's an outer carrier. Correct.
Explain what that is.
That's instead of like a bulletproof vest where I would zip up and have my vest on, something like you pull over, kind of like what Officer Taylor's wearing directly behind you, the vest that he has on, something like that.
So it would be open on the side?
A little bit, yes.
Commissioner Gretzky, you made a point of saying that Detective Byrne is a long-serving member of the department. Why did he respond to a call for service that would normally be presumably answered by patrol?
Well, that's actually incorrect because he's the lead investigator on the shooting, and that's the vehicle they were looking for, and he was here doing his job.
Is there any body cam footage?
At this point, as I mentioned, this is still an active investigation. My team has to finish our work. All of the officers who discharged their weapons were completely justified in doing so, but I have to have my team complete our investigation before we can even release anything like that.
And DA, 3 officers shot in Delaware County in the span of 10 days. Can you respond to that? Is there any root issue that is causing this uptick or this string? Is it coincidence? Is it something else?
It's not coincidence at all. What it is the fact that in this country we have a culture of affinity for weapons that is just destroying too many of our communities. We have too many people with guns who shouldn't have those guns. Just the day of the East Lansdowne massacre, we were announcing homicide charges, first-degree murder against a 15-year-old boy who had a ghost gun that he used to kill another 15-year-old boy. There is no way in this rational world that a 15-year-old boy should get his hand on a junk gun that only exists so that criminals can go out and commit crimes without there being a serial number to trace that back to. We as a Commonwealth, we as a country, have to actually start doing something about this. These gentlemen in uniform behind you are on the front lines. Officers are getting shot everywhere across this country every single day. We wonder why we're having a hard time recruiting people. I don't. It's because of the violence we're letting happen. The community has stepped up in the city of Chester and are working for the first time in a long time more closely with our police officers because, as the mayor said, we are making conscious efforts to engage them and treat them with dignity and respect, and they're having the faith in these officers as well. But this is a large problem that we're not going to solve here today. I thank God every night when there's not an officer shot in Delaware County, but this has just been a nightmare these last 2 weeks.
What do we know about the individual who was shot at 900 Pennell Street?
I can't tell you anything about that individual. It's an ongoing investigation.
You spell Armstrong's first name, is he 20?
Yeah, it's Torraize, I think, Walter. Torraize, I think, is the first, and Armstrong, and the date of birth I had was some date in October of 1983.
Is there a shortage of police in Chester? I've heard people tell me there's only 1 officer on duty sometimes.
Wait, I'm sorry, Walter. I think I got that date wrong.
1980,
Yeah. Sorry. He's 20 years old. Is that right?
10/1983.
Okay, so he's 40 years old.
40 years
wow,
old.
my math is off. He's 40 years
He's
old.
40.
This is why I'm a lawyer. Yeah.
Is there a shortage of police officers in the city? I've had people tell me sometimes there's only 1 officer on duty at a time.
There's a shortage of police officers across this country. Again, we're having such a hard time recruiting people because of days like today. So I'm not going to get into, and I don't think Stephen wants to either, how many officers are on patrol at any given time. That's always a different moving target. I know that they've done tremendous work recruiting people, but again, we're working in an environment where a lot of people do not want to be police officers. A lot of young people don't want to be involved in public service. You know, our military is missing their recruiting goals every single year now. We have a shortage of CYS caseworkers in the county, a large vacancy of people who we want to just make sure that they're taking care of children who are being abused or could be abused. We need an entire generation of people to listen to what John F. Kennedy once said and get in the game and realize it's not about you, it's about your country. We need you. But we also need to make political changes so that people can't just get ready access to firearms who shouldn't have it.
Was there a victim of the drive-by shooting?
I'm sorry?
Tyrese Armstrong was involved in a drive-by shooting that morning. Was there a victim?
There is a victim, and I can't speak more about that victim at this time.
Somebody was shot.
Somebody was shot, correct.
A man or a woman?
Was it a fatal shooting? That's all.
It's not a fatal shooting at all.
So the victim survived.
The victim survived.
Can we say if it was a male or female?
I'm not going to get into that.
You
I'm
mentioned-
trying to protect the victim, okay?
And you mentioned that 4 officers returned fire. Was the fatal bullet from the firearm of Officer Byrne or from the other officer?
That's all being part of the ongoing investigation that my CID is conducting right now.
He was struck twice on the left side of his body, is that correct?
Officer Byrne?
Yeah.
That's my understanding is he was struck twice in the back.
So far we had, there came out that he was struck twice, but from what it appears is, and speaking with the doctors, that he's actually struck once, but it went in and out to his left side. And I know there was a few questions for an updated picture of Detective Stephen Byrne, which I do have provided you, and I'll put it over there on the table for you.
Was there a mugshot of the suspect?
He's deceased now.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Officer Byrne, was he shot in the stomach and the thigh? And can you talk about the medical treatment he received?
You got first-class medical treatment, right?
That's correct. I mean, kudos to the doctors and the medical staff to echo what the mayor said. They did a phenomenal job. I'm not a doctor, but if I said it would be like his left flank area,
We don't know which organs it was.
no, not to my knowledge, no.
We need to make sure that we continue to have great medical service at Crozier Chester. Okay, I think that's probably about it for the questions. That's all we can really talk about. I appreciate everybody for being here, and thank you all in the public who have given prayers for Officer Byrne and for these other officers. They're all doing well. That's the good news from today. Thank you.